So C-SHIP is an intensive entrepreneurial training program designed for professionals in the cultural and creative industries. It is designed by ISHEC in response to the current COVID-19 crisis and under the framework of the United Nations International Year for the Creative Economy and Sustainable Development. It is designed for the cultural and creative industries, but specifically for 5 sectors, so cinema and audiovisual production, cultural institutions and museums, built heritage adaptive reuse, performing arts, and design. We have 3 ad hoc training programs, 1 specifically for individuals and 2 for organizations. And the overall objective is to make culture sustainable, impactful, and viable. This is why we have launched 5 free webinars in order to trigger interest around the 5 pillars of C-SHIP, which are business model innovation. Today, we're speaking about ecosystem partnership building for CCIs. In December, we'll be speaking about internal and external governance. In January, we'll be tackling the concept of immersive technologies. And in February, we'll be presenting about sustainability and positive impact. Now I would like to present our first speaker today. Arthur Legal is director at KEA and co-founder of the Be Creative Network. He's responsible for coordinating KEA's research team and supervising studies, reports, and projects. He designs methodologies to assess the contribution of the cultural and audiovisual sectors to the wider society and economy, and engineers support programs and policies for the cultural and creative sectors to nurture arts, culture, and creativity across territories. He also delivers strategic advice to local authorities on the role of sport, culture, and creative industries for local and regional development. He authored and co-authored several research studies on culture and creativity in Europe, such as Mapping the Creative Value Chains, a study on the economy of culture in the digital age. He has an experience including managing some key EU-funded projects such as Culture for Cities and Regions and Cultural Heritage in Action, 2 peer learning projects including looking into culture investment and strategic initiatives in more than 150 cities and regions across Europe, and co-manages a capacity building program to support investment by banks in the cultural and creative sectors as part of the Creative Europe Guarantee Facility, a program launched by the European Commission and the European Investment Fund.
Many thanks, Ruba. Pleased to be with you today, and I look very much forward to discussing with you. I'll share my presentation. Meantime, I will apologize for my long short biography. Perfect. All right, so today I want to talk to you about creative ecosystems and our approach to creative ecosystems, a few case studies as well, if I have time, and talk to you a bit about KEA as well, what we do and the type of projects we lead. And we exist since a bit more than 20 years, and we've been working with different governments, different cities, regions, but also a lot with European institutions. So since 20 years, we have always been working in the field of culture, creativity, and always doing research projects with and for the sector. So our main aim, our mission, let's say since 20 years, has always been to promote how culture and creativity can nurture our society, can feed the economy as well of Europe. And let's say to really help to build a strong and resilient cultural and creative sector across Europe. And I'll start by giving a kind of bird's view perspective on what we are talking about here when we talk about creative ecosystem. This might sound like a bit of an odd term, but it's actually about 2 things. One is the creative sectors themselves in their diversity, so including music, performing arts, books and press, audiovisual, also cultural heritage, design, video games as well. So it's very broad, but also the kind of glue that binds them together. So the type of interaction they have amongst each other, but also with the territories, with the cities, with citizens living in different environments. And this glue manifests itself in many different ways. And that's why here in this diagram, in this figure, we have also the different various impacts of the cultural and creative sectors, be it in terms of social cohesion, how it brings people together, be it in terms of urban development, how cities are shaped by, let's say, different cultural and creative activities, but also more economic-driven activities such as tourism or the economy and jobs. So when we talk about the creative ecosystem, we talk about the diversity of people working within the cultural and creative sectors, but also diversity of impacts, a diversity of effects it has on any given territory. So that's what we are talking about, a lot of different interactions across the board. And the reason why we talk about creative ecosystems is first because we believe in the power of culture to address many challenges of our times, but also because they matter per se. And if you look at this kind of iceberg picture, the way we care about culture is very often, at least in the eyes of policymakers, is to promote arts, cultural heritage, identity, promotes culture per se, but also to touch upon a much wider range of, let's say, public policy areas, territories regeneration, urban planning, but also trigger behavioral change and help to fight against climate change, for instance, or simply to improve the quality of life in a given territory. So why should we care about creative ecosystems? It's because they matter themselves, but they also matter to address so many issues that our society is facing today. So when we talk about culture, when we talk about creativity, we talk about something which actually goes much beyond culture itself. That's something important in the eyes of policymakers, but it also has many implications that we should be wary about. First thing we should be wary about is what I would call, let's say, the instrumentalization of culture and creativity. So when we work in the field of culture, there is always this kind of distortion between what I just said, really. Okay, culture and creativity can contribute to so many things that we sometimes tend to sort of forget what's at the core of this different, let's say, range of impacts of policy areas. We tend to sometimes skip directly to urban regeneration, to social cohesion, without valuing sufficiently, let's say, the cultural and creative workers. And that's why we talk about creative ecosystems, because the way to work properly with arts and culture in order to deliver so many things for our cities and regions and society at large is to develop the right enabling environment, the right space for people to actually take up new initiatives that will lead to the different impacts we wanted to achieve, but will do so in a free and confident way. So we talk about, for example, cities, but it can be true for other types of territories. We talk about them as enabling spaces, spaces where you can develop initiatives, where you're empowered to do that, and where, let's say, the artists, cultural workers can express themselves in the way they see fit. I hope I'm not getting arrested for saying that. And how do cities work with enabling spaces? We've seen different types of models. Some approaches where there is a sort of top-down model where cities sort of impose a vision, impose a sort of leadership that then provides new spaces, new opportunities for artists to create. So, for example, living, let's say, from unused buildings to artists to develop their own activities in there. So it can be by providing direct incentives, providing grants, providing funding for artists and creative cultural workers to develop initiatives. But it can also be by simply, let's say, opening up spaces in the city for artists and cultural workers to develop their activities. And here we see, for example, some pictures where there is no particular, let's say, policy apart from unusual encounters, apart from accidental initiatives, which then give a new life, a new vibrancy to a specific place. So there are different models out there, from very directive to very, let's say, free models, which all support artists and creatives in different ways. And the way we have been working in this kind of very, let's say, complex and flexible environment is by always, let's say, looking at the specific model of the city, the specific way cities work with cultural workers, and try to understand what are the local cultural resources, how do people, artists and cultural workers actually work in a specific environment, and based on that, to develop, let's say, policies, programs, initiatives that actually help them to achieve this kind of the vision they have developed. So creative ecosystems in a nutshell are enabling environments. And for these enabling environments to work properly, there are a couple of very important steps that are listed here that we normally use in order to make the most of these environments. I'm not going to go through all of them, first because I've mentioned some of them, and second because I think that some of them are self-explanatory, but I just want to stop a bit on point 4, which is about thinking about innovation, because that's an important element here. When we talk about cultural policies, when we talk about creative ecosystems, we never really say what kind of innovation is in the arts and culture, and I think this is a very important point to make, which is that arts, culture, and creativity can lead to many innovative ideas, many innovative impacts, as long as you kind of take the risk that you would take in any other innovation process as well. So you need to invest in arts and culture and think of this as an innovative process. And otherwise, if you think as art as a return on investment on public money, you will never achieve much. The last thing I would like to point out as well is the importance of linking pins. It's the importance of people who understand both worlds, both different components of the creative ecosystems that we are discussing today, but also the kind of wider picture of what the city, what the government wants to do to navigate this environment between artists, cultural workers, and public policies. So there is a need to have people who are kind of connecting the dots in order to be more of an enabler for cultural workers. I'm going to go very quickly on this because this is more how we go about it. I'll just mention that the way we help people to develop creative ecosystems is always about 3 principles. It's always participatory. It's always about doing with the cultural workers and with local operators. It's always about being pragmatic, doing things that make sense in a specific context, and also being holistic, meaning that we look at all the different types of solutions that may be required, and we're not stuck in one particular way of doing things. And then we've got some different steps that we normally use, but I won't necessarily go too much into that because I see that I'm already running out of time. But let's say that there are 6 main steps. One is to first understand what's going on, briefing, diagnostic, then set up a vision that can be shared to discuss and develop the participatory processes, then designing a strategy and action plan together, and then the implementation, monitoring, evaluation is kind of a classic thing to do in public policy making. But what I wanted to flag here is really that when we talk about creative ecosystems, we are talking about many different things. And most importantly, when we talk about culture, we are talking about more than culture in a way. And we are more than what we sometimes think we are. So that's all I wanted to say in a very quick way. I'll be happy to further discuss that with you today and give you perhaps more examples of all I just said. But I think that what Chryssa and Frédéric will say will also be good examples from the presentation as well. Thanks a lot, everyone. Happy to answer any question you may have.
Thank you very much, actually, Arthur, for providing us with a lot of food for thought in this brief but very interesting presentation. You started by explaining what KEA does and did since the last 20 years and how culture and creativity can nurture the society but also the EU economy. You defined the diversity of the CCIs and how the different interactions in the ecosystem happens. You also elaborated on why the CCIs matter and how they impact the many sectors of the society and how cities could become enabling spaces for nurturing creativity. I found it very interesting when you elaborated on the importance of building on existing cultural resources in order to develop policy and investment opportunities and the role research and development can play, but also the importance of having enablers on the ground. This actually will help us a lot, actually will help our next speaker a lot in presenting the exchanges they've been doing in her network and elaborating on further case studies. Thank you very much again. Our next speaker today is Chryssa Vlachopoulou. Chryssa is a project manager at the European Creative Hubs Network since 2016. She has coordinated and participated in numerous projects and programs focused on the CCIs, such as P2P exchanges, workshops, and skills development activities. She's currently the project manager of the Makers Exchange project that is focusing on mobility and exchanges of experience between the culture and creative hubs, maker spaces, fab labs, and formal and informal learning and skills development systems in a cross-sectoral way. Chryssa holds an integrated master's in fine arts, and she's an MA candidate in cultural management in Pantheon University of Social and Political Sciences. Welcome, Chryssa. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Ruba. And thank you, Arthur, for opening the conversation in such an interesting way. So hello again, and thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be participating in this very interesting conversation. My name is Chryssa Vlachopoulou, and I'm a project manager in the European Creative Hubs Network. The European Creative Hubs Network, ECHN, is a peer-led network of creative hubs around Europe. But I would like to start by better explaining what we mean when we say creative hub. In the network, a creative hub is a space that gathers creative and cultural professionals to support their growth, collaboration, interaction, and development. As hubs are focal points for creatives and for creative businesses, they're all about enabling connections and partnerships to develop organically. The idea is that proximity creates all the conditions in order for collaboration to flourish and exchange, which we think that it is the best way to support creative professionals to learn and grow. So here I've brought some pictures of our members. These are hubs around Europe. You can see here Capelli in Finland, UPTech University in Porto, Portugal. This is Paris Romanzo, where I'm currently based in Athens, Greece. Base Milano in Italy, Nova Iskra in Serbia, La Palais in Bruxelles, which I'm sure you are all familiar with. Republican in Copenhagen, and Atoliye in Turkey. So one of the network's roles is to facilitate the building of partnerships among its members, but also with relevant organizations of the broader CCI's ecosystem. In fact, the network itself started as a partnership among 6 European hubs and the British Council, which lead the project that we were all participating back then. In general, partnerships for us equals actions, activities, projects. All parties of a partnership bring into something unique to this action or project. They bring their own expertise, their own network, their own resources, and they can be beautiful mixes of all these components. They are relationships that help creatives and creative organizations to grow, learn, and achieve common goals. They can lead to interesting outputs and innovative outcomes as they promote collaboration instead of competition. And at the same time, they help all partners to become stronger and more experienced. Hence, they strengthen the creative ecosystem. So the European Creative Hubs Network is currently participating in several EU-funded initiatives and programs that aim to strengthen the ecosystem. How this is done? This is done because these programs offer a lot of opportunities for skills development, peer learning, and exchange of experience addressed to professionals of the cultural and creative sectors. So I'm going to be talking about the Makers Exchange project specifically. It is a pilot policy project co-funded by the European Union that aims to define and test policies and actions supporting the mobility and exchanges between the cultural and creative sectors and spaces such as creative hubs, maker spaces, fab labs, but also formal and informal educational systems and skills development systems. The aim of the project is to embed mobility in all mainstream CCIs support programs, policies, and ecosystems across Europe. I think that it's interesting to talk a bit more on some examples of this project. The program included a pilot mobility scheme to test mobility, which we called hyper-global, hyper-local. The title was inspired by let's say, the idea that we want to produce locally, but also be connected globally with our peers and colleagues. This project was developed when COVID started. So it was a project on mobility that actually was restrained back at that time. So I have brought some examples from a digital round of exchanges that we implemented. For example, Ping Pong Away was a project that an artist, Clemens Kolvais and Olivia Kotsifa, from Decode Fab Lab in Greece, they planned to develop a ping pong table, an interactive ping pong table, a tennis board, actually, using distributed working methods. So for this project, the exchange team drew inspiration from the idea about a game that is meant to be played both indoors, but also outdoors, away from any computer screen that we were also sick and tired back then. So a game that can be played with a partner, but at the same time, keeping social distance. Regarding the process, the exchange team agreed that the design of the rackets will take place in Athens, while the electronics design took place in Vienna. So after settling on the final design, rackets were fabricated out of plywood and cork, which were laser cut into shape, while the racket grips were 3D printed. So all of the process for creating the project was successfully documented, and it was uploaded on a website that I can share with you after the presentation that includes instructions for anyone to use and create this project. Another interesting example, also coming from the Makers Exchange, is the Pixel Print project, which it was between Joanna Pinto, a maker from India, currently based in the UK, who formed an exchange team with the Lotto Zero Creative Hub, which is a leading creative hub in the field of textile design based in Italy. The team collaborated remotely in order to learn from all traditional methods and share knowledge between cultures, makers, and organizations. So intercultural dialogue played an important role in the group sessions that were organized between the team. Joanna was introduced to Sicilian crafts and to a printing technique called Marci in Romana, Italy. The technique uses brass to develop natural prints, which are produced in small artisanal quantities. And on the other hand, Joanna shared the kalamkari technique, a traditional technique from India, which also uses brass to develop prints. During this exchange, Joanna and Elena and Arianna from the Lotto Zero team, they managed to produce their screen prints while introducing the hand-associated qualities of warmth, comfort, and familiarity in digital means of creating textiles. So they also looked into making the project sustainable and friendly to the environment by researching in fair supply and regenerating silk and a natural non-toxic dye print paste in order to create fully biodegradable silk printed textiles. So the reason that I brought these examples in our conversation today is because I think that there are great examples of collaborations between peers, but also cross-sectoral collaboration, because cross-sectoral collaborations foster innovation and unexpected outputs. Although these projects are small-scale projects, I think that they can be considered as a small ecosystem where diversity and scalability and sustainability should be some of the basic objectives. So here, I also have some more pictures coming from the network and the partnerships that are built throughout our activities. This is Lotto Zero, which I mentioned in the previous example. And I'm going to invite you to follow the project's activities and visit our website and also our social media pages. Thank you. I will give the floor back to Ruba.
Thank you very much, Chryssa, for this wonderful presentation, actually, and for giving us a concrete example of how things are working on the ground and how creative minds were able to collaborate also during the COVID-19 crisis. I pretty much appreciated the Max project, and it was wonderful to see how you worked hard on stressing out very important keywords, which are produced locally but be connected globally at the main time. Keep an open source and collaborative mindset, cross-fertilization, cross-sectorial collaboration, innovation, and sustainability. And this was reflected in all the projects which you shared with us. And I'm sure there will be many questions following up the presentation afterwards on the experiences you shared, but also on your efforts at the European Creative Hubs Network in creating these partnerships. Thank you very much, Chryssa. Our third speaker is Frédéric Meseeuw. He has been Senior Institutional Advisor at the Center for Fine Arts of Brussels BOZAR since 2011. He is responsible for the design of European and international projects and has worked on numerous EU-funded initiatives in the field of visual arts, music, performing arts or arts, science, creative industries, and ICTs. He has also helped the European Commission for the pilot project New Narrative for Europe, which gathered top European artists, intellectuals, and policymakers across Europe. Previously, he was advisor at KEA, and in a while, Arthur will be explaining more about KEA. He took part in various policy or research assignments, including the 2006 Economy of Culture study, and collaborated with a wide range of European projects and networks, from the independent music labels to minority language regions across the continent. Frédéric holds a master in European politics as well as in translation. After playing saxophone most of his life, he has been studying, exploring, and practicing visual arts in the last 8 years. Frédéric, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. So yeah, as Ruba was saying, I'm a senior advisor on well, quite a few things, but mainly on international projects. I would say now working a bit more on digital, as you will see here, and yeah, so I'm just maybe going to bring a maybe more macro view perspective on what does an ecosystem or partnership or community building logic means when it comes to a large multidisciplinary art house like the Center for Fine Arts. So I don't know, maybe some of you don't know the Center for Fine Arts. So it's based in Brussels, in the center of Brussels, in the arts, in the museum quarter. Since 2002, we call it BOZAR. It's a label also encompassing all its transversal dimensions, so all its different disciplines. Which cover mainly visual arts, cinema, music, literature, also arts and science for a few years. We have a BOZAR lab now, which is also trying to go more into cross-disciplinary interactions with other sectors, scientific sectors mainly. But we have a long history basically. So it all started in 28. So I'm not gonna be too long on that. But it's like an iconic Art Deco building designed by Victor Horta. So who's like our major Art Nouveau architect and Art Deco architect in Belgium. So it's an iconic building. So with a heavy meaning for us. Also at the time it was already designed as a multidisciplinary house for culture, and that made it quite special. Also still until today, I feel. So since 2002 we have a brand name, so called BOZAR, as I said. We are a public limited company under the public law with social purpose. I'm saying that because since 2002, so we are under the federal states, and they decided that it would be nice to give us like this double or triple statute of working for having a public purpose, a public mission, but also functioning also as a private company. So it makes us quite ambitious in the projects we have. So yes, and so we had the COVID crisis, like all of you, but it brought us in this very, like most cultural organizations today and artists, in this very difficult context with a lot of financial uncertainties for the coming years. So we don't know in terms of public funding what this will mean for the coming years. In terms of private funding, neither. We know that sponsors are dropping or reducing their costs. We know that well, people are coming less to BOZAR or not at all. So in terms of ticket revenue, it's a big blow for us at the moment, and it will still be. And in that context, like for all of us individually, the new context is going digital. So for us and for most art houses across the world, I feel the elephant in the room, I would say, is how to become more digital. So in that sense, what I thought when talking with Ruba and exchanging emails, I thought that maybe it would be nice, well, to firstly maybe show you briefly what is our traditional ecosystem, but I suspect you know it already. But I will explain it. And then after, maybe explain you how, through a major digital project that we are currently developing, how I think it will also encourage us to develop also further our ecosystem and partnerships with new partners and new organizations with whom we traditionally do not work with. And I think it could also be an interesting case, well, in a modest way, for other organizations in the way of how we interact with those new players that have been active in the digital sphere for much longer than our old dinosaurs, cultural organizations and museums, etc. So yeah, basically that's one of our first question. A question is how to fill in this kind of room. So our current ecosystem, I would say, and partners. So I would say that we have 4 layers of partners, perhaps 5, perhaps 6. So we have the cultural partners, and I wanted first to start with the artists, because I mean we're an art house, so the artists are key for the way we function, the way we live, are key for our mission, the way we transmit values, etc. So they are keys. Next to them, more for the visual scene with the artist-run spaces, all those collectives, which are basically the grounds on which we depend to create and to show creativity and artistic imaginaries, etc. Next to that, of course, we have all the co-producers, helping them to develop exhibitions, festivals, music concerts, with the Orchestre National working with us, with the La Monnaie Opera House, with museums, concert halls, cinemas, working with the Cinémathèque, for those of you know. So we depend on all those other cultural organizations also facing the same basic kind of challenges than we do, although I wouldn't complain too much in our case because we're a federal house and we have also a generous support from the federal state of Belgium, which is not the case for most Belgian cultural organizations, unfortunately. We have other partners, of course, and from the cultural field, from other European projects, from networks, also international networks. And then we have the funding partners, so all our funding organizations. So starting with the federal states, well, Belgium is quite complex, as you may know. So we have all those regions and communities. So we are trying to represent them culturally abroad and in Belgium. And so basically, they are all contributing to our budget somehow, including some support from cities, mainly the city of Brussels, and European support. And then we have all those private or traditional, I would say, revenue streams from companies, sponsors, foundations, also individual patrons, etc. And then also it's terribly important, or other ticket revenues, so all the visitors coming to BOZAR. So all this is interacting, and I think it's constituting our financial ecosystem on which we rely, and it's very fragile, as we can all see, and at the moment, I mean, the ticket revenues have been dropping for 2 years. In terms of public funding, it's still doing well, but what about next year, in 2 years, when the public authorities will realize that we have less money to dedicate to the cultural fields or to the creative fields. So we'll see. And then we have those pluridisciplinary partners, and I think that's maybe more related to what my colleague said earlier. So basically, this is how, and it's quite new, I feel, when you look at it in the long perspective. I mean, 30, 40 years ago, again, all dinosaurs like BOZAR didn't bother really to work too much with universities, research centers, other fields, ICT companies even less, of course. And in the last 10 years, I feel this interest and need to focus to work much more with those new partners. So we are still looking for types of collaborations. How can we collaborate more with the universities in the field of research, with research centers? We've had a very good collaboration with VIP, the Flemish Institute for Biotechnology in Flanders. We have that as part of a big Creative Europe project, actually, on arts and science in sustainable development, so it's doing quite well. ICT companies, I can come back to that, but I think it's going to be the big thing for us in terms of how to develop our ecosystem, our future ecosystem. And then with the 4 layers, I would say, of partners, which is maybe the most important in terms of societal engagement, is our partners in the school networks and all those civil society organizations working on societal questions like social inclusion, decolonization. I mean, working with diversities, with communities, etc., diasporas. Again, 20 or 30 years ago, we would do it like naturally by just organizing nice concerts and exhibitions. And today we try to be much more engaging with communities and inclusive and participatory as much as possible. Although it's always a daily challenge because, again, I would say that our sector is still quite traditional and somehow conservative in the way it develops projects and addresses at least some social questions. So sorry, I'm going a bit quick because I know Ruba is looking at the clock. So I feel the pressure. So yeah, Digital BOZAR. So we were lucky because we had a very good support, if I can say so. I even give you the number here from the Plan de Relance, the European Recovery Plan, and we were informed about it in June by the federal state. Basically, it's a project that we made, that we submitted to the federal state and the European Commission to digitalize all our project, the whole of BOZAR. So from its infrastructure, so installing optical fiber to developing being a cybersecurity plan, implementing new ticketing softwares, etc. Also having like a huge layer of training activities for colleagues, because we're all discovering teams and how to broadcast activities, etc. So it's a new un nouveau métier, I would say. So and also have developed like streaming activities, so streaming of content produced by BOZAR or with our partners, and also I would say experiment new digital path, mainly in visual arts, to create, so that would help us create digital installations, VR project, AR also potentially, exhibition applications, etc. So it's an investment. So the tricky thing is that we're supposed also to generate revenue, which is already a big debate internally, because it could also put us in directions where our direction would favor like content that is more that you can more easily sell online than rather niche architectural or artist films that basically the larger audience won't be too much interested in. So this monetization of our content online is gonna be quite interesting for us, also in terms of partnership building, I think. So yeah, this is like a general visual summary of the whole project. It's quite, for me, it's maybe an interesting case study to study in the long term, also for partner organizations, because we are again lucky to have this huge amount of money to develop our digital activities in a holistic way. But how will we implement that? At the moment, we are conducting this external study to help us manage and conduct this digital project as well as possible, and through all the layers. So I've talked about all those different elements, cybersecurity, creations, etc. But then the question, again, coming back to the theme of this workshop, is going digital, that's great, but with whom? Because basically at the moment we cannot do this by ourselves. It's impossible, because it's, yeah, again, these are new skills that we need, and we don't have those at the moment. So for us, it brings new challenges, new practices, and new skills. And the key question in the long and also in the short term, and the study we're working on, we hope will give us elements of answers for that, is with whom shall we collaborate, for instance, for the streaming of our activities. And the sector is also, and you all know that facing the arrival of all those ICT operators in Belgium, you have Proximus, Orange, Telenet, that are all proposing those platforms, and that are also having more and more collaborations with cultural, artistic organizations, festivals, etc. In Proximus, it's like a big ICT company in Belgium. I just saw that, for instance, they have the Clara Festival on their television channels. So basically, we are now in the situation where we will have the question as to whether we contact them and try to see whether they would be interested in streaming or content online. Same with Orange. I also feel that banks, through their online platforms, are also increasingly becoming like content providers. or giving access to content. And also you have also for us the question of those intermediary streaming media platforms. I'm not even mentioning the Netflix example because it's another galaxy for us, but at a more modest scale in terms of partnerships, we have Sooner, Arte, Ovio, Meseeuw, who are all very interesting media and already established media platforms that would be good maybe for us to collaborate with. And we have other content aggregators, distributors. Also for us, what's interesting is to what extent this project will also maybe open up new sponsoring or funding channels and maybe close other channels, because we know that more and more sponsors are interested in having visibility online and maybe less on physical in physical venues. So maybe some sponsors will tell us, okay, I'm interested in your podcast program, but I'm not interested anymore in your exhibitions. So we'll see how that goes. Of course, training IT organizations who could help us to train our staff in the coming years, that will be crucial. And then again, the question of how do we maybe deepen our knowledge and understanding and maybe prospective reflection on what does digital mean for us, for artists, for art today. I mean, the blockchain question is always coming back and about its impact on the artworks, etc. I mean, we'll need thinkers and researchers to help us really position ourselves in a more strategic way in the coming years. So I think it will also be crucial. So yeah, so the 4 challenges, I would say, well, there are many others, but yeah, sorry to say that first. It's a bit vulgar, but raising the revenues, because it's an investment coming from the European Commission, and it's also a need at the moment. Maintaining high artistic quality, and I think it's crucial because we could just become another television channel and produce nice content and nice sounds and lights, etc. But we need to maintain also our core mission is also to maintain our artistic quality. Reaching out new audiences, because we all know the digital gap, so it's also a risk of just focusing everything on digital and just losing some communities. And then also the question of preserving our existing ecosystems, partners, as I said, public authorities, sponsors, while also funding others. So these are 4 challenges that are interlinked, I feel, and we'll see how that goes. And I'm happy to come back to you in 2026 to explain you about how it went, if you want. Voila, sorry, it was very short and frustrating, but happy to answer to any question you might have.
Thank you very much, Frédéric, and sorry for giving you such a short time. Actually, you explained brilliantly a very complex plan and very ambitious plan, moving from a traditional ecosystem, which was already very intersectorial, let's say, to a much more complex one, facing actually new challenges related not only to ICT, but as you said, to research, to revenue streams, to upskilling and reskilling. So you open too many questions. And I think the most important part is the fact that you were courageous enough to embark on such a big institutional challenge, but also having the federal state recognizing the importance of culture and providing recovery fund to this endeavor.